Week 6 in college football delivered. The chaos was here, and I told you that it was coming. Welcome to the College Football Show. All right. So this week was absolute peak college football. This is why we love college football. This is why we watch. There is no other reason than what we got this weekend. And as a fan, you should love this. As a fan, anything that runs counter to more parity in college football, anything that runs counter to giving you the best games and the best matchups and making games against teams that shouldn't matter actually matter, the way you can't just roll your helmets out on the field and win. That is what we should be rooting for. We should not be rooting for uneven revenue sharing. We should not be rooting for the government to take over college football. None of those things should we be rooting for, because what we are getting right now is absolutely fantastic. I'm George Reister, former NFL player, college football player, and college football analyst on CW. So much to talk about. So the preseason rankings, which I have continuously talked about, and mind you, I do preseason rankings here too, so I'm not getting ready to poo-poo them all together. However, the difference between my preseason rankings and everybody else's preseason rankings is that then they use those rankings and they're like, it's confirmation bias every single week. Well, if you don't lose, you stay there or close to where you were. No, that's not where it was, because you got the preseason number 1 and number 2 team out of the playoffs. It was out of the top 25 right now. And when you look at Texas, Penn State, and Clemson, they are a combined 8-7 after 6 weeks. Come on, man. What are we doing? What are we doing? This is absolutely insane. Texas has 2 losses. Penn State has 2 losses. Clemson has 3 losses already. And we are going to react to the AP poll. And we have to talk about the college football playoff, where things stand right now, because I believe that the college football playoff, it is impacted by the preseason polls because of the strength of schedule metrics. Because think about how many times that you hear people say in the preseason, oh my God, that's a tough schedule right there. Alabama's got to play 16 ranked teams. Oregon has to play 14 ranked teams, even though that there's only 12 games. They exaggerate the difficulty of the schedule because of preseason rankings. But then once all the games are started to be played, now all of a sudden we realize, oh, this team wasn't as good as we thought they were. Exactly. So the strength of schedule metrics are then somewhat based upon preseason rankings. And therefore, you'll be like, oh, well, that was a ranked win. USF got a ranked win over Boise State. Such got a ranked win over this guy. But that ain't it. It's not. But I had a couple of clear takeaways from this week of college football and the first 6 weeks, and I hope you guys agree with them. Hop in the chat, because you know that I am a chat guy, and I will get to your stuff on the chat. Let me make sure I got the chat pulled up for you guys, because, of course, I want to make sure that all of your thoughts and opinions, that they get heard. All right, and you guys make sure that you like, share, tell a friend about the show, and most importantly, share, subscribe, all of those things in between. All right, so let's get to my 3 takeaways for this week. My 3 biggest takeaways for college football this week, very, very simple. Very, very simple. Number 1 is there is not a clear number 1 team in college football right now. There are 4 number 1-ish teams right now. You got Ohio State. They looked the part. Dominated Minnesota this week, 42-3. Julian Sayin, they heard the noise from the outside, and they were like, we'll show you what's going on. Their defense looks really good. Oregon, they were idle this week. They had a bye, but they're 5-0 right now, and they're sitting in the 3 spot in the AP poll. You have Miami. They just beat a ranked Florida State, I got some thoughts about Florida State, and I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news for everybody that wants to hear it, but it is an I told you so moment. And then you have Oklahoma, who blanked their opponent with a backup quarterback. And when John Mateer gets healthy, we'll see. The second biggest takeaway that we have is that parity is the product and upset math is up and the fear is down because you have, and what I mean by all of that is that the fear of people walking on the field with you is no longer there because of the parity. There is less depth on Penn State's team than there used to be. There's less depth on Alabama's team than there used to be. There's less depth on Georgia. So you may have really good frontline guys, but once you have an injury, once you have a substitution, somebody's tired, somebody gets kicked out for targeting, anything like that, somebody gets food poisoning, now all of a sudden that team that looked real good, man, ain't quite as good as it is right now. So this parity is why you can have winless UCLA come up and stun Penn State. The same reason why Florida looked like a dumpster fire and Billy Napier was going to get thrown in the trash, which is also why I told y'all Billy Napier's job and his job security could not only depend on that one game. That was foolishness to try to have it depend on that one game. It was, because it didn't make any sense. If you were going to fire the dude, you should fire him. But not just, if he beats Texas, he can save his job. Just to only be having him on the hot seat 2 weeks later. It's either do or don't sort of thing. But that's why Florida, who DJ Lagway looked awful, can go up and beat Texas. And I kept telling people, I kept hearing Joel Klatt, who's a wonderful dude, is amazing football knowledge, everything else. But when I watch his top 10, because I watch other people's shows as well, kept hearing the words benefit of the doubt. And I keep hearing people say the words, oh, well, I'm going to give this team the benefit of the doubt right now. For what? What are we giving anybody the benefit? Why would we be giving Texas the benefit of the doubt right now? How does that make any sense? Prior to this week, well, I know they haven't beaten anybody. I know they haven't played anybody, but benefit of the doubt. No, this is why my rankings are based upon 3 criteria. And I believe the 3 most important criteria that you can base your rankings on: quality wins, schedule played, and dominance. That's it. That's it. If you go by that, you will never have to say the words benefit of the doubt, because nobody should get it. It don't matter if you won a national championship or you are defeated. You haven't won one game. And the third takeaway is that defense still wins, especially when it is paired with a star quarterback. Because you got Ohio State, Julian Sayin. Both defense and the quarterback look great. Oregon with Dante Moore. Offense, defense look great. Miami with Carson Beck. Defense looks great. Quarterback, superstar. Oklahoma, defense fantastic. John Mateer, really good. Maybe we should throw Texas Tech in that conversation with Baron Morton. Maybe it's Texas A&M with Marcel Reese. Defense still travels and defense still wins. There is nothing to talk about outside of that. But we are going to get to the reaction to the AP poll. We are going to get to the reaction to the games today. But we are going to start with the Miami versus Florida State game, 28-22. This game, when you watch this game, there is nothing about this game that made you think at all that it was anywhere near a 6-point game. Not even close. Miami looked in this game like they might be the best team in the nation. But Florida State, to me, and this is where the I told you so comes in. And this is why you watch the show. Because Florida State, they have been fool's gold since that Alabama win. I told y'all on this program, I didn't believe in Florida State or Alabama after that game. Didn't. Because, yes, Florida State went out and they dominated them physically and all of that. But it felt like if Alabama had a little more time, they would have been able to come back. And you looked at Florida State's offense, and I told you they were a good team, but they're not an elite team. And they are still a 4-loss team probably. They're much improved from that 2-10 season last year. But this is not a Florida State team that even before this game that you could have been putting in the college football playoff. Absolutely not. This is a game where Carson Beck, everything was on full display because they took vertical shots. and their takeaways that they traveled from Coral Gables. Because the Canes, they didn't even run the ball super good. Only 97 yards rushing for 3 yards per carry. So good on Florida State for that. But Beck, he was ultra clean. 20 for 27, 241 yards, and 4 touchdowns, no picks. And 2 of them went to true freshman Malachi Toney, who had 7 for 107 and 2 tutties. And the CJ Daniels, the highlight machine, 2 more touchdowns. And Miami was up 28-3 after 3 quarters. And then you had the 2 interceptions from Bryce Fitzgerald and Jacoby Thomas. Come on, man. The way that they looked in this game was a championship profile. Explosives win, turnover margin on the road. Those things travel. And Miami looks not only like a threat in the ACC, especially if they can get the run game going against good teams. But when you look at Miami's upcoming next 3 stretch, they're off this week, and then they come back with Louisville and then Stanford. Do you know what that they are going to do to Stanford? And then they play at SMU after that. This is a team that is going to start the season 8-0. Now, is there a chance that they get upset against Louisville or Stanford? Absolutely. Well, Stanford, absolutely not. But Louisville and SMU, they could pose somewhat of a threat, but it would just have to be because of turnovers. Like Carson Beck has a bad game, that those games are close. Now, Florida State, you do have to give them credit in this game for the fourth quarter surge, but it also masked early issues. But they did score 19 points in the fourth quarter to make it close. And this is where Miami, and I guarantee you Mario Cristobal is telling his team this, we have to learn how to close. Because this was very similar to what Oregon went through at Penn State. You build up a lead, and then you got to close it out. You got to keep the same intensity going, so then you turn a game that you were completely dominating and had your hand in, and then to all of a sudden, now all of a sudden we got a close game. And you don't want that, because that makes no sense. Because if you do that versus really good teams, you might slip up and lose a football game. But Florida State, no touchdowns through 3 quarters. Thomas Castellanos, 25 for 45, and he's not a 45 pass attempt kind of guy. 272 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. But he also led the team with rush yards with 57. And that is the difference, because Florida State needs to be able to run the ball to have success. And that's why I said that they are a good team, but they can't beat elite teams. Like, elite teams also are good every single week and find a way to win. And Florida State's not that. Now, they are still technically alive in the ACC race, but the next couple of weeks, they got to steady this run game. And, because they got Pitt this upcoming week. Then they got Stanford the week after that. And then they got Wake Forest. So, this is a very manageable stretch for Florida State, but they cannot drop a game like they did against Virginia, which, because they dropped the game against Virginia, we know that anything is possible. Pitt with their quarterback situation. What if Stanford has an Angels in the outfield type of game? And we saw Wake Forest push Georgia Tech to the absolute limit. All right, next game up that we got to talk about. Lord have mercy, Penn State. Penn State versus UCLA, 42-37. Now, I know nobody in their right mind could have thought that Penn State, who was like 24, 26-point favorites, that they would have lost this football game. But I told you it could be that UCLA was going to be able to beat this number, and UCLA could make it difficult on Penn State. Penn State had a couple of things working against them, which could have gone either one direction or the other direction. Because when teams lose emotional games like they did against Oregon, and I've been a part of it on both sides, your team either goes to the galvanized and get it together, very similar to Ohio State with Michigan last year when they lost to Michigan. That was the best thing that happened to them and propelled them to win a national championship. Or you go in the tank and you brush it off as an aberration, and you don't have that intensity and bring that fire out. So Penn State was already at a crossroads. And then you add in the fact that they were traveling 3 time zones to play. And Big Ten teams who travel more two time zones or more, they lose football games much more than they win them, even no matter what it looks like. And this is why the Washington-Maryland game was so close, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But this time zone traveling thing is a big deal, and exactly why the SEC does not want to expand at all. It makes it so much more difficult. The Big Ten is the most difficult conference in terms of travel on everybody. Your coaches have to learn how to manage it, and your team has to learn how to manage it, and it'll get better. But when you have a young football team, also, it's going to be difficult. But that ain't what Penn State has. Penn State let Oregon beat them twice. That's what happened. And Penn State's offensive identity, it does not match their personnel at all. And the Drew Allar excuses continue. Oh, Andy Kotnicki and James Franklin, they aren't using them right. The wide receiver last year, the wide receivers aren't good. And it is always an excuse. Here is the truth. Drew Allar is a decent college quarterback, but he's not special. And they also are not using him correctly. All of those things can be true, because I find it a little bit troubling. Find me since James Franklin has been at Penn State, find me a top-tier quarterback. Find me top-tier quarterback play. You can't. You can't. And there is a reason for that. And that is James Franklin's chink in his armor right now. That's the notch in his armor, the slash in there. And I also believe that James Franklin's, his calm demeanor that he had during that game at halftime, it actually seems like a lack of urgency right now, because they were down 27-7 before halftime, and they had zero urgency to go score. And I'm like, what are you doing? The announcers are like, what are you doing? Like, why was there no urgency to score? You got the ball back with like 4 minutes left, 3.5, 4 minutes left to go. You had the ball at midfield at like 2 minutes left. And you still putting along. Well, we're running. Maybe we'll run. Yeah. Don't worry about the clock. And you're like, what are you doing, James? And at this point in time, how negatively the fan base is reacting to James Franklin, there are a lot of college football jobs open, and he's a good coach. Maybe he might be better, sir. And I know that he said that Penn State was his dream job. Well, Penn State don't love him back right now. So maybe at the end of the season, maybe Virginia Tech's the answer. Maybe it's UCLA. Nah, I don't think they want. Maybe it's Oklahoma State. Maybe it's Arkansas. Maybe it's somewhere like that. Still have no problem finding a job. But here is the thing. When you've been at a place for over 10 years and you haven't won a national championship, and it's not like you're in Ames, Iowa, and you're building the program up, and the heights just keep going up and up and up, that's a different story. But when you're at a prestigious place like Penn State and you haven't brought one home, and it's just like the fan base is giving up at this point in time, there is a loss of hope. Just saying. All right, the next game up that we got to talk about, Texas versus Florida, 29-21. And actually, let me hop in the chat right now, see what y'all are talking about in the chat so I can see what's up. Yep. So, so drop your stuff in the chat, and for sure I will get to it. All right. And make sure that you like, subscribe, tell a friend. Texas versus Florida. Now, everybody knows I have 2 quarterback sons. One of them in college, one of them in 8th grade. So I have a little more sensitivity to quarterbacks. And I know that DJ Lagway has had limited limited time in terms of practice because he missed spring ball. He was hurt. Arch Manning was sold as the greatest thing since sliced bread. And anybody who disputed that was told that they were crazy and everything else. And turns out that we're right, that it is a wait and see and all of this. And you can't call somebody generational, right? And sit behind, Quinn Ewers when Quinn Ewers was a good quarterback. He wasn't great. If you were generation, you would have felt like you saw what happened at Clemson when Trevor Lawrence was there. But anyways, good on Florida because they found their identity in one night. And their identity has to be Lagway Wilson, Dallas Wilson, and a bruising running back one. Because DJ Lagway played his best college football game in this game. They kept his throws under 30, which is important for balance for this football team. 21 for 28, 298, 2 touchdowns. And Dallas Wilson, 6 for 111 and 2 tubs. Now here's the truth. When I went back and watched this tape, I know I'm praising DJ Lagway. And one of the things that you're supposed to do is if you have a dynamic wide receiver and you get one-on-one coverage, give him a chance. But the touchdown and that deep pass to Dallas Wilson, those were chuck and ducks from DJ Lagway, where you chuck it downfield and you're like, I chuck and duck. That's not a way that is going to be fruitful every single game. It worked this game, but that's not a way that is going to, you are going to have some turnovers. And when you try that on third down, the ball is going to end up on the ground more times than it's probably going to be caught. But it got caught this day. And then you had Jadan Baugh, 27 carries, 107 yards, and a touchdown. And then you add 6 sacks of Arch Manning and 2 fourth quarter interceptions forced. And that was the blueprint for beating Texas. That's the truth. And the outlook for this Florida Gators team is this. Is that if the perimeter spacing holds up, Florida can claw back to relevance. They got Texas A&M on the dock this week. Then Mississippi State after that. And then Georgia after that. This Florida defense is good enough to slow people down enough that if DJ Lagway cannot turn the ball over and they run the football, they're going to be in every single game. This is not a special football team, but this is Florida needs to be if you guys saw the movie F1, they need to be the Brad Pitt character. Just make everything messy and muddy for everybody else, and all the fast cars, everybody that got everything going. No, you just muddy it up for everybody else and make them play in a phone booth and then just drag them down. That's Florida's key to success. And Billy Napier, good on him in this game, but I'm gonna tell you, do not expect some magical thing. So you either have to buy into Billy Napier and continue to let this thing grow, or give up. And if you give up on Billy Napier, you might lose Lagway. Dallas Wilson is going to be on the market, and the bidders are going to be super high for him. And that's going to be a thing. Now, on the Texas side, their margin for error is absolutely gone. They are in the same boat as Penn State right now. Their offense looks disjointed. And then what about Arch Manning? Because his play is highly concerning. When you watch him, there are plays where he flashes, like that last touchdown to Wingo. You're like, yo, that's a nice move. Stepped up in the pocket. I mean, that's how you teach it. That's what you want to see out of your quarterback. And then he follows it up. Bad interceptions. Not being able to get the ball where he wants to get the ball to. Inaccuracy. Missed wide receivers. It is frustrating because he makes special plays, but it's like the routine plays are the major issue. There are guys open. He can't see them when the pressure's coming. Come on, man. And the line doesn't even look awful. I mean, 16 for 29 for 263 and 2 touchdowns. That don't look bad, right? But you're nearing 50%, 2 late interceptions. And now it is not his fault that Texas got held to 38 yards rushing, because that's not ideal to win in football games. Think about the way that the Georgia-Tennessee game went. You got to be able to run the football. And Texas couldn't run the football. Come on. Just the truth. And then you got Oklahoma, Kentucky, Mississippi State. Out of the SEC teams, Texas has the easier road. They are. They definitely have the easier road. But, is what it is. And they might get Oklahoma this week in the Red River rivalry without John Mateer, so that's definitely going to help. Now I want to take a break from the games, and I want to get to the AP poll. Because, and I know, Bill, you're talking about the AP poll too? Well, if you have been here on the program, your boy's been talking about the AP poll and mocking them for 2 years now. Here is the AP poll and the ESPN FPI as we speak. There was a change at number 1 and 2 in the FPI poll in terms of Oregon and Ohio State. They flip-flop 1 and 2. But when I look at the FPI poll, I'm like, The only thing that looked like Texas at number 8, I can't not understand how this is where I think that sometimes the computers, when we put things into the algorithm, that we set the algorithm one way. And then when we see results like Texas, we're like, no, Texas can't beat very many teams right now. We've watched them play. This is not a special football team this season. It is not. USC? Really? I don't know. Miami looks like they should be in front of Georgia, Alabama, and a few other teams up there. So, but aside from that, it doesn't look terrible outside of the Auburn and TCU and Penn State as well. But Penn State feels still kind of good, but yeah, I don't know. All right, now let's look at this AP poll for a second so you guys can really deep dive into this AP poll, because my biggest question is who is really number 1? Because for so many weeks, there was this benefit of the doubt given. And you're like, why are teams given the benefit of the doubt? And let's go back. I want to go back for a second to the beginning of the season and let you guys look at the beginning of the season and how that looked. Okay? So here is how the AP poll looked at the beginning of the season. You had Texas number 1, Penn State number 2, 25 and 23 first place votes. And I'm like, wait, what are we doing? Like, how did just because Arch Manning showed up, it was number 1? Well, this is what we're dealing with. So it took 6 weeks, and there's some shaming because there was enough people on social media saying, I bet you Texas and Penn State are ranked this next week. Penn State and Texas have not won a Power 4 game this year. So why on earth would we possibly think that this is the number 1, that these are top 25 teams? Nothing about them looks top 25 right now. They might be top 25 in talent, but top 25, they did not deserve to be. Then you had Clemson at number 4. These teams are 8 and 7 right now. And aside from that, the poll is pretty decent in the preseason, except for Kansas State. Florida shouldn't be in there. South Carolina's not in there no more. Yeah. Boise State's not in there. Yeah. Exactly. Looking a little sketchy right now. Looking real sketchy right now. So let's go back to this. So let's go back to this top 25 because I have some thoughts. So Texas and Penn State. This is the first time since 1986 that 2 top 10 teams dropped out in the same week, and they deserved it. Now, the other team that I want to point out is number 9, Texas Tech. Texas Tech actually might be a little bit too low. They might. This team, Cody Campbell has bought his way to a juggernaut right now, potentially. And when you look at their 2027 recruiting class, too, they've already locked up 2 5-stars already going to Texas Tech. So you know what it's about. But I don't mind it. Now, people are going to grope and complain. Oh, look, he's just buying in it. Everybody's got to have an advantage. Georgia has an advantage for national championships recently. Alabama's got an advantage. USC, blue blood out in California, Hollywood got an advantage. Different places have different advantages, and Texas Tech is using their advantage, which is their brand, and it is working. They actually might be ranked a little bit too low right now. Then you got Georgia Tech at number 13. They don't play Miami this year. And this is a team that feels like fool's gold. I watched them play against Temple when I was doing the game on CW. I watched them play against Wake Forest, a game that they should have lost. They escaped in that game. And then so that Colorado 27-20 win where they snuck out of there after a bunch of turnovers don't look that great right now. Colorado looks awful. And Clemson, that win don't look so great right now either. So Georgia Tech, as a college football playoff team, I do not see it. This is not a team that can win a national championship, not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. You look at what they have left. They have Virginia Tech, at Duke, Syracuse, at North Carolina State, at Boston College, Pitt, and then Georgia. They might go 12-1. But the reality is, nothing about this team is a championship caliber team. No hate, because their head coach is doing a great job. Haynes King is doing a good job at quarterback. There's nothing wrong here. They just have the benefit of a schedule that is not going to expose them at all. No Florida State, no Miami. That definitely helps. And then a down Clemson. The next one that I feel is Missouri. Missouri is quietly crept up to number 14. And I'm going to be honest about this team. We're going to find out this week against Alabama. I do not know about Missouri. I have watched them play, but games against Central Arkansas, close one with Kansas, Louisiana, South Carolina without their quarterback for, 2.5 quarters of the game. And UMass don't give me any sense of confidence against Alabama this week. None of it. It doesn't give me confidence either one way or the other. I am looking at this Missouri team and I'm saying, all right, we'll see. Let's see what they're really about. That's what I really want to know. And the next thing that we have to talk about is Virginia at number 19. They beat Louisville this week, 30-27 in overtime. And they own multiple overtime wins. The defense is opportunistic, and it's travel proof now that they've won on the road. And Toney Elliott, he deserves massive credit for getting himself off the hot seat, having his team sitting at 5-1. They're one of the few teams that has not had a bye week yet. Oh, wait, hold on. Excuse me. Yes, excuse me. They're one of the few teams that hasn't had a bye week yet, like Vanderbilt and Illinois as well, and Memphis. But they are figuring out and finding a way to do it. So big ups on them. And at 19, are they going to, drop a couple games potentially? Yeah, they probably will. But they got Washington State in 2 weeks. Then they got a layup with North Carolina. Cal will be a little bit tough. Like, this is a team that is not only going to a bowl game. This is probably a 9-win season for Virginia. And big ups on Toney Elliott, and this is why you have to give your coaches time to succeed. Vanderbilt at number 20. I feel like they might be a little bit too high coming off this 30-14 loss to Alabama. Now, they did play Alabama tough, but this feels like a 25, 24, 25 type of team, like just on the cusp of the top 25. Florida State at number 25. I threw Florida State out of my top 25, and that is I'm telling you what's going to happen on Tuesday when you see the poll. Don't expect Florida State to be in there because their offensive inconsistency is glaring. They couldn't get anything going versus Miami, even though they might be the number one team in the nation, but they followed it up after that, the Virginia loss. Disjointed, too many mistakes, all of that stuff. Saying the top 25 team is just a good football team. And they finally decided to rank the group of 5 teams with Memphis and USF. They're like, okay. It's enough time. Memphis has won six games. We do, and USF is 4-1. One of them is we got to figure out who's gonna get into the college football playoff. You know who only has 19 points in the votes, but is also undefeated, who I originally picked to make the college football playoff? UNLV, who was a game away with Boise State last year. Everybody told me I was crazy. Crazy like a fox, baby. All right, the next team up. Oh, actually, the next thing that we got to do, we got to get back to these games. Make sure that you guys like, subscribe, get notifications, and tell a friend about the show. All right, so we got to talk about Vanderbilt versus Alabama. 30-14. Alabama did a great job to win this football game. Great job winning this football game. It was important, it was necessary, and it mattered. But at the end of the day, here is the truth. Vanderbilt is not an elite football team. They came into Tuscaloosa. They fought hard. If this game is in Vanderbilt, Vanderbilt might win this football game. And now Alabama, their balance is back, and it travels. But if you watch this game, does that Alabama team look like a team that cannot be beat? Do they look like Oregon? Do they look like Miami? Do they look like Ohio State or Oklahoma right now? I would say no. But their quarterback, Ty Simpson, dude stacked up another efficient game. 23 for 30, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kalen DeBoer knows what he is doing on offense. It is, dude, you give him a competent quarterback, he will give you competent stats. I mean, great stats. And then Jam Miller, the running back, turned out 136 rush yards and a touchdown. And Bama scored on all 4 red zone attempts and held Vandy to 9 second-half rush yards after they gave up big runs in the first half. And that adjustment kind of screamed, hey, Alabama might be all right in November, but they got to get through October 1st. And the SEC title as a ceiling is still intact if their pass efficiency, if Alabama's pass efficiency, if it can hold up to Missouri's pressure looks, they're going to be all right. But the next little stretch of Missouri, Tennessee, and South Carolina, those are no layups. And Alabama's going to be put to the test, and they are living on the edge right now. Like Alabama can still lose one more game and still make the college football playoff. 100%. The issue is that Alabama and their coaches, they can't handle another loss. And it's not for that locker room initially. It is for the public. It is for the fine bomb callers. The pressure is already on them. Like, they feel it. Like, we can't lose. We can't lose. We can't lose. and they're not going to be able to play free. If they drop another one, you can believe you me. If they drop one, they're going to drop two more. You can book it. If Alabama loses to either Missouri, Tennessee, or at South Carolina, they will lose two more games this season. Like if they lose Missouri, Tennessee could happen, South Carolina, Georgia, any of them can happen at that point. I didn't mean Georgia. I meant Auburn in the Iron Bowl. All of that can happen. But now on Vanderbilt's side, the reality check is this. Turnovers matter. If you turn the football over, you are going to lose. You are going to lose. And Diego Pavia and his Tim Tebow magic couldn't cut it, and it couldn't save you. Because Pavia had flashes, 183 pass yards, 58 rush yards. But the interception and the fumble, they absolutely killed two scoring drives. And then the downfield passing game never materialized after halftime. And if Vandy wants to stay ranked, it can't give Alabama extra possessions and then go quiet. You have to be able to answer. Now, Vanderbilt came in there talking about a national championship, and that was never going to happen. It was good for them to believe it and all that stuff and talk about it, but they know deep down in their souls they're not a championship caliber team. But is this a team that could get to 9 wins? Yeah, could. It could. But the gate is narrow right now. Because their next 3 games, they're off this week, but then they get LSU, Missouri, and then Tennessee. It's going to be tough to get by all 3 of them games. But if they do, that hell yeah, college football playoff awaits, because they would have knocked LSU out. They would have potentially knocked Missouri out, depending on what happens in that Alabama game. And then Tennessee, yeah. Whoever Vanderbilt beats is knocking it. They have leapfrogged them in terms of college football playoff potential. So they've knocked the other team out. Let's get to this Wisconsin versus Michigan game. Now, the Wisconsin side is not very consequential right now. It's the Michigan side, because Michigan plays in LA 2 time zones away against USC this week. Now, you wondered in this game, because Wisconsin scored on their first drive, and you were like, are we going to have a ball game here? Did Luke Fickell figure something out? No. Michigan tightened up. Then they had a sack, an interception, and then just 3 points over the final 45 minutes did Wisconsin get. And the Badgers averaged 4.4 yards to play and were 1 for 1 on 4th down, but they rarely crossed midfield without stalling. I mean, this was not the type of performance that you wanted to see out of Wisconsin. But Michigan, though, they finally, they married Bryce Underwood's freshman flair with that trench football that they like to play. Because Underwood, this is how you know that the kid is really good and really special. When he plays inferior competition, numbers go up. When he played Oklahoma, which is one of the best defenses in the country, he didn't panic. Did he have a good game? Absolutely not. Was he the reason why they lost? Absolutely not. Was he a disaster? No. Did he look panicked? No. He looked none of those things. And then in this game, the boy came out 19 for 28, 270 yards, a touchdown, and no interceptions. And then you had Justice Haynes, 19 carries for 117 and 2 tubs. They controlled the ball, 445 yards to 252. Come on, man. And then you had their wide receiver, Donovan McCulley, 6 for 112 and a touchdown. They got playmakers on this team, and if they can get something out of the pass game, it's good. And Sharon Moore has just continued on what Jim Harbaugh was doing. Play great defense and have not only just a competent offense, it feels like they are building something that is relevant. And I've been telling people this. Michigan is going to be a tough out this year. However, this ain't their year. This is a 3-loss team. In 2026, Michigan is going to be one of the college football playoff favorites. You can book it. You can book it. This will not be a good football team. This will be a great football team in 2026. That's what I see coming out of this team right now. But their Big Ten title formula, efficient quarterback play, downhill running game, and hit some shots. But that ain't going to be enough to beat Ohio State. Well, they might beat Ohio State. Four in a row. You can't say that they can't happen because they got better quarterback play this year. But their outlook, though, if the passing game keeps up, stacking 9 to 10 yards per attempt on games, their ceiling does rise fast because they got their next games. They come to LA to play USC. And if they can run USC over like I anticipate them being able to do, it's going to be dangerous. It's going to be dangerous because then they got Washington at home in Ann Arbor. That's going to be a slug fight and a game that I expect them to win. And then they got Michigan State after that, at Michigan State. And they might go to jail for the things that they do to Michigan State. Like, that game could get nasty ugly. That game could get super, super ugly. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's just the reality of the situation. Is that this is not going to be pretty. So, the next game that we got to talk about is, let's go to Wisconsin for a second. They got Iowa, Ohio State, and Oregon coming up next. And listen, I don't know what Wisconsin's plan is for the future, but I'm going to tell you the future ain't looking real bright for Luke Fickell right now because it's just not, man. It's just not. And it's unfortunate because the dude was a really good coach over there in Cincinnati, and you can't believe that he just forgot how to coach. There's no way he just forgot how to coach. Something's going on. The fit ain't right. Something else. But now let's get on to this Minnesota-Ohio State game, 42-3. I am very, very close to saying that I was wrong about Ohio State. I believe that Ohio State, even though they lost so much to the NFL, I wasn't worried about that. The thing I was worried about was Brian Hartline as their offensive coordinator and Julian Sayin as their new head coach, and then a new DC and Matt Patricia. Wasn't that I didn't think the talent was going to be there. I wondered how this was all going to mesh together. Now, Ohio State looks really good. And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be criticizing Oregon's win against Penn State and say, that win's not as good as it looks right now. Well, okay. If we're being honest, where's Ohio State's quality wins? No, they don't have real quote-unquote quality wins. They have dominant wins. They beat Texas. First week of the season, 14-7. Looking at unranked Texas right now, you're like, I don't know about that. They beat Grambling, then beat Ohio. They went out to Montlake and dominated Washington. That's dominance. Only 24 points on offense, though. So you're still like, okay, cool. And Minnesota's defense is awful this year. So you're like, okay, yes, we believe in Ohio State, but how much do we really believe in Ohio State? It's just the truth. Now, this defense, though, this defense is playing from another era. And they're dropping 40 points while doing it on offense. Lord have mercy. This Minnesota game, they held them underwater and did not let them breathe. 476 yards to 162 yards. 7 for 10 on third downs. 0 turnovers. And this was the not once, not twice, not third, not fourth, but the 5th straight game that Ohio State has held opponents to 10 points or less. That is something that hadn't been done through 5 games since 1979. They have championship DNA. And now they heard people being like, oh, I don't know. Why do they have a governor on this offense? Well, they opened it up. Julian Sayin, 5 passes of 30 yards or more. They were aggressive. 23 for 27, 326, 3 touchdowns. Carnell Tate, 9 for 183 in the tub. Jeremiah Smith wasn't even the focal point. He still had 7 for 76 and 2 touchdowns. Here is the rub for Ohio State. You win these next 2 road games against Illinois, who's still a very good football team, who is going to fight like hell. You win at Wisconsin on October 18th. The chatter around the national championship is going to get real loud when Penn State comes into town. And Penn State is going to be wounded by then. They already wounded. But that's a game where they can salvage everything. They can salvage confidence. They can salvage pride. They can salvage everything. And then, wouldn't that be peak college football for Penn State? Lose to UCLA, lose to Oregon, and then go beat Ohio State. Would that not be peak college football in 2025? These are the things that happen, and these are the things that can happen. All right. Now, the Gophers, though. 1 for 11 on 3rd down, 162 total yards. They got absolutely dominated. They got to try to find some wins at Purdue. Well, not at Purdue, against Purdue, Nebraska, and then Iowa over the next couple weeks to try to salvage something. I'm just saying. All right, the Illinois-Purdue game. I told you that Illinois was not going to be able to cover the spread in this game. They did. And then this was now all Illinois needed after that Indiana game was clearly a get-right game against USC. And I'm not saying that in any disrespectful way to USC, because normally when people say get-right game, they're like, oh, yeah, you got an inferior opponent to beat them up. No. That USC game was a get-right game for Illinois because USC is a name-brand opponent. Very good offense. It was a challenge. And after getting stomped on by Indiana, you bounce back like that? This is what Brett Bielema is building there. This is what he's building. And everything kind of crescendos this week against Ohio State. At home. You can avenge this Indiana loss with a great performance against Ohio State. You sneak out and win that game in Champaign, you've done something. And I still got Illinois as a potential college football playoff team. I had them in this year, and everything does not hinge on this Ohio State game. But after that, yes, everything hinges on the game after that, because Illinois has after Ohio State, at Washington, Rutgers, Maryland, Wisconsin, and Northwestern. So if they get through this Ohio State game, win or lose, there's a very real path that they can go 5-0 and finish 10-2, which is exactly what I predicted. All right. But Purdue, Barry Odom. Great job, man. This team is looking like they're headed in the right direction. I know you're losing, but it looks better. It looks better than it did last year. No shade to Ryan Walters, but Odom is doing a good job there. Now, we got to get to the fast break segment, because I know that there are a lot of games that were going on that y'all did not watch, but I watched for you. This is why you come to the show, because I watch it for you. So you got Iowa State versus Cincinnati, 38-30. People were like, how is Cincinnati? And I initially was like, why the hell is Cincinnati favored in this game? Oh, it was because Iowa was down like 20 players and multiple starters, especially in the secondary. Like 2 of the Big Ten's top corners were out. And Cincinnati, credit to them, they did exactly what they were supposed to do to a team that was inferior, whether it's because of injuries or whatever else. They were not as good as Cincinnati, and they kicked them in the teeth. So good on Cincinnati for that. Brendan Sorsby, the kid looks good at quarterback. And Iowa State, big on them. They were down 31-15 at halftime, and they fought back shorthanded. So this is why Iowa State ain't falling out of my top 25. Because that was a team with fight, and they were shorthanded. So, yeah. So you get some benefit of the doubt that people, no, we ain't giving you no benefit of the doubt. You've actually earned it. All right. Let's look at this Washington versus Maryland game, because I know y'all didn't watch this game because YouTube TV wouldn't allow you to box it with some of the other games, so I know what y'all was watching. I had to pull out another device to watch this game at the same time. Huge win for Washington, 24-20. It was on the road, and to be a good football team, you have to win these sorts of games on the road. Because this is definitely a win that keeps them on track to finish 5th in the Big Ten, like I predicted in the preseason. And honestly, they might finish in front of Penn State right now, because they were down 22-0 late in the third quarter. And part of that is because of the travel. They traveled from Washington all the way out there. Jed Fish got to figure out how to win on the road and get his team to perform better, because this was not it. 20-0 late in the third quarter. Then it was 20-3. And Washington closed with 45 plays, 298 yards, and 24 points on its final 5 drives. That is not going to work versus better football teams. And they held Maryland to 19 plays on 52 yards in their last 4. Desmond Williams, Damon Williams Jr., who I like, 275 passing yards, touchdowns to Denzel Boston, Desmond Roebuck, and then Jonah Coleman's late touchdown and finished the whole thing off. This was a big cross-country win in the Big Ten, road rally, but their next 3 games against Rutgers, at Michigan, and Illinois are going to make and break this entire season. You got to beat Rutgers, who they dropped a nasty game to last year. You got to beat Michigan, and you got to beat Illinois if this team can make the college football playoff like their fans are sort of believing right now. I don't think that this is the year, but you got to put up fights. And we see styles make fights. And Maryland, up 13-0. Man, this was a game that they thought that they had in the bag. Their young quarterback, Malik Washington, he flashed, but he couldn't get it done in the end. You got to be able to make plays. Too many mental miscues and everything else. They got Nebraska, UCLA, and Indiana next. Could be a 0-for-3 stretch. Georgia, Kentucky, 35-14. This game was not interesting at all, but Georgia found their identity. Physical answers after the Alabama loss. And they went with a ground-first script. 180 rushing yards. Gunnar Stockton accounted for 3 touchdowns, 2 rushing, 1 passing, only passed for 196 yards on 23 attempts, 15 completions. Come on, man. But it was Dylan Bell who had 2 short yards touchdowns, and the defense, it just choked Kentucky, 45 rush yards. And this leaves you thinking about the future of Mark Stoops there, because there was a report that he asked for a buyout last year. And the school was like, no, bro, we're not doing this. And he denied the report, but it was from a veteran reporter. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. This Kentucky team, honestly, is not worth talking about. And Georgia was supposed to win this football game, and they won by 3 touchdowns. There's not a lot to talk about. I'm just saying, as it relates to them. But Georgia, their upcoming schedule is something to talk about. At Auburn, Ole Miss, and then Florida. Ain't no layups in there. Ain't no layups. So we going to see what Georgia is really about if Kirby Smart can rebound. Because if he goes and wins all 3 of them games, that might mean we should start believing in Alabama. Next team up. I want you guys to look at what is going on with Texas Tech. And you guys like, subscribe, get notifications, tell a friend. Texas Tech football is not being talked about. You guys, Texas Tech football is not being talked about. They are now ranked number 9 in the nation, and people are looking at them like, yeah, people are ignoring them in their polls, in their own personal polls. I see it every single day. You sleep on them, you're going to find out. You're going to FAFO. Because this defense, it looks elite and it looks travel-proof. They shut down Houston 1 for 12 on third downs, 3 takeaways, second half shutout. Look at what they did to Utah. They absolutely put Utah in a chokehold, and they have one of the best offensive lines in college football. This defense for Texas Tech is for real. And their quarterback, Barron Morris, who I was wondering if he should even start after the freshman came in last year. 345 passing yards. Jacoby Williams, 107 yards, 2 touchdowns as well. This team has a championship formula. Like, I don't know if the roster is quite good enough to win it, but I know that if they win the Big 12, right? Or even if they go 12-0 and then finish and then lose the Big 12 championship, you're sitting there like, this is a college football playoff team. But they still do have a test against Arizona State coming up in just a couple weeks. Then a few weeks after that, they play BYU, who's a very good football team right now too. Oh, this is going to get very, very interesting. And we're going to find out what's up. But mind you, this is not, like, I'm still kind of high on this Houston team as a good football team, even though they lost 35-11, because their starting quarterback, Connor Weigman, he got hurt. We don't know how far he's out, but this Houston team is built on defense, and that's how you win football games. We're almost to the end of these games, but we got Texas A&M, Mississippi State, 31-9. 31-9. They did exactly what they are supposed to do to a bottom of the SEC type of team. Now, you got to give Jeff Levy credit over there at Mississippi State. The team looks better. They're improving. They feel like they're on the Purdue track right now. But it was just too much KC Concepcion. 2 touchdowns. Marcel Reed was good. And under Mike Elko's group, this defense has now held Auburn and Mississippi State to a combined 1 for 23 on third down. I don't care who you playing against. If you play 2 Power 4 teams and they only get 1 out of 23 third down conversions, that defense for real. Now, if Reed can continue to develop as a passer, this team will be okay. I'm still not a full believer in Texas A&M, but I'm about 3/4 of the way through. Yeah. And the last game that we had, we had two more games. I talked briefly about the Virginia game against Louisville. Tony Elliott, culture, coaching, and patience. Culture and coaching by him and his staff, patience by the administration, and now they are paying the dividends for that. And then the last game is the next to the last game, Notre Dame, 28-7 against Boise State. Y'all wondered why Notre Dame was still ranked so high in my poll after losing 2 close games. Well, they look every bit the part. Because this is still a high-level football team. They have lost 2 football games by a combined 4 points to Miami, who might be the best team in the country, who took Miami down to the wire. And then they lost to Texas A&M, another team that is ranked inside the top 5, essentially right now. That's what you got? Yes, top 5 right now. Texas A&M 5. Notre Dame, CJ Carr, their defense is getting it together. This is a team that has a legitimate shot if they get into the college football playoff. Like, Georgia haven't played anybody. Notre Dame's schedule, it stinks. They played Miami, Texas A&M, Purdue, Arkansas. Boise State, they have not played a group of 5 opponent or an FCS opponent. And they still got North Carolina State, USC left on this schedule. Come on, man. Stop it already. And then a game that we're not even going to talk about, Oklahoma versus Kent State, 44-0. There's nothing to be learned or gained. Hawkins was in for John Materi, did a great job. He was admirable in his job, and this team is still really, really good. But you guys, though, college football is great. It is excellent. Thank you for being with us. Make sure that you like, subscribe, tell a friend about the show. And then, of course, we will always get with you at all times. Peace out. Catch you guys on Tuesday for the next live show. But make sure that you also catch everything in between.